मेहरा जी छा गए।
बचा लेना।
जिंदगी में सेव करना जरूरी है, मगर जब बात पैसों की हो सिर्फ सेविंग से काम नहीं चलेगा। इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड्स में इन्वेस्ट कीजिए और अपने सेविंग्स को आगे बढ़ने का मौका दीजिए।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.
While we can keep arguing over whether it's a good or a bad thing, for some it's very good, for some it's terrible, end of the world, there is no doubt about one thing, that Narendra Modi's BJP has built our most Hindu establishment yet. This is mostly to the exclusion of minorities, especially the Muslims, as we had showed with data in last week's national interest. In fact, then I'd asked you, I'd teased the second part. This is the second part. If the BJP's voters, about twice as many as the next largest parties, which is Congress, if they think this is okay, if they are happy with this, who's to complain? In a democracy, numbers win, isn't it? If you don't like this, you can try and reverse the numbers. Otherwise, there's no point complaining. Now, to even initiate that secular centrist fight back, I'm deliberately using the expression centrist because a left secular fight back is an impossibility. That is secular centrist fight back, maybe say Macron style. If you have to wage such a fight back, you have to first accept how you got here. Because as we keep saying, unless you accept the diagnosis, you cannot choose the treatment or endure the treatment, because treatments are tough in these cases. Which takes us back to a storied Lok Sabha debate in 1955. Jawaharlal Nehru was facing one of his many crisis moments, one of his many challenging moments in the House, and it seems like some of the trouble was of his own government's making. So his education minister, Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, who by the way is the first and the last Muslim leader of any consequence that Congress party has produced. After him, there hasn't been one, although we've had two Muslim presidents under the Congress's watch. That is Dr. Zakir Hussain and Fakhruddin Ali Ahmad. But no really nationally known Muslim leader. He was the last one. So Maulana Azad leaned over and whispered something to Nehru. And that became a story. He was quoting apparently to Nehru an Urdu couplet by then a budding new poet or shair, as Urdu poets are called, named Shahab Jafri. And what was the couplet? Couplet was, "Tu idhar udhar ki na baat kar, ye bata ke kafila kyun luta, mujhe rehzanon se gila nahi, teri rehbari ka sawal hai." Loosely translated, or best effort translation is, stop beating around the bush, just tell me, how did our caravan get sacked? I can have no complaint with the bandits. Rezan is bandits. I can have no complaint with the bandits. I only question your leadership, because your leadership got you here. Subsequently, this also became the most flogged line in the heartland's political discourse. In fact, you might have heard me use this a couple of times in Cut the Clutter before this. Now, if you're deeply frustrated with the current arrangement under the Modi-Shah BJP, this is the question you should be asking the Congress and all other secular parties, not just Congress. And I put secular with single quotes, all secular parties, particularly Akhilesh Yadav's Samajwadi Party, Lalu's Rashtriya Janata Dal, even Mayawati's BSP, Bahujan Samaj Party, although her secularism has been fully fungible with short-term power, she has shared power more than once with the BJP, still says that she wants secular vote. And we'll explain to you what secular vote means in current Indian politics, which is the nub of the problem. See, the question we should be asking all these secular leaders is, how did the caravan of your secular parties get sacked? And how did it lose its most valuable cargo, namely the Hindu vote? We can't blame the BJP for stealing your vote. It's an election, it's politics. They would want any vote out of their rival. So they've taken your Hindu vote. We can't blame the BJP. But were you asleep at the wheel? How did you let this happen? Now, from where does Narendra Modi's BJP draw its majority? Let's analyze. The Hindi heartland, which extends to the Himalayas in the north, Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand. They rule all of the Hindi heartland. Then it stretches in the east to Jharkhand and southeast to Chhattisgarh. Add to these the two big western states, Maharashtra and Gujarat, and the BJP is already in the 250 seat ballpark. In fact, then if you add Karnataka, then BJP is already at 272. So they are done, they've got a majority. The BJP has decisively won the post-1989 tussle for the Hindu vote in these states. As we have maintained, the real post-1989 question, 1989 is when the last Lok Sabha with the Congress majority ended. The most important political question in the heartland has been, can you divide with caste what religion united, or restitch with religion what caste divided? That is the binary, that is the key binary. For 2 decades until 2009, caste was winning. Or as people used to say in the old days, Mandal versus Kamandal, Mandal was winning against Kamandal. From 2014 on, it's the epoch of religion. Examine the facts. In Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, the Hindu vote was balkanized by those claiming the Dalits, that's Mayawati, Yadavs and the bulk of the other OBCs, that was the Samajwadi Party. The upper castes or the Savarnas were left with the BJP and powerless. So powerless and victimized were they by the wave of implicitly state protected, if not state sanctioned lawlessness, which is kidnappings for ransom, murder, extortion under Mulayam Singh Yadav, that they voted for Mayawati only for protection. The BJP wasn't ready yet. BJP wasn't in a state where they could have won power. So BJP wasn't ready yet. A vote for it was a vote wasted in anger. It brought you no power. Then what was happening in other states? In Maharashtra and Gujarat, the two other decisive states in national politics, because these account for 74 seats in Lok Sabha, a somewhat similar game was played out for decades. It was Maratha and Dalit versus the Brahminical Hindutva in one, a more sharply defined KHAM, KHAM, that is Kshatriya, Harijan, Adivasi and Muslim combination in the other, that's in Gujarat. In each of these, for much of the period between 1989 and 2014, these combinations worked for the so-called secular forces until Narendra Modi reversed it. First in Gujarat and then in Maharashtra. For 2 decades since his first election win in Gujarat in 2002, the KHAM formula has been buried. In fact, come elections later this year, it will be buried even deeper. More debris would be thrown over it. In Maharashtra, the opposition might have seen a sliver of hope that Shiv Sena will bring back the Hindu vote. At this point, however, the Thackeray dynasty needs to bring the Sena back to themselves first, and the jury is out on whether they'll be able to do it or not. Now, deeper south, the BJP has grown roots only in one state yet. That is Karnataka. Now, Karnataka was a Congress bastion so impregnable that in the past, both Indira and Sonia found safe Lok Sabha havens there, Chikmagalur and Bellary respectively. It was the same all-conquering lower middle caste formula. First, the rise of the Gaudas created a powerful Vokaliga caste group, and that vote went away. Then, one public humiliation by Rajiv Gandhi of his party's most consequential Lingayat leader, then Chief Minister Virendra Patil. He was ailing, he had just had a stroke, and there were some communal riots on, and Rajiv Gandhi made a halt in Bangalore and humiliated him in public. That drove the angry Lingayats to the BJP, and since then they've remained with the BJP. In fact, BJP Chief Ministers, the last one, Yediyurappa, who's BJP's preeminent leader in Karnataka, is a Lingayat. The current Chief Minister, Bommai, is a Lingayat too. Truth to tell, we've come too far in this discussion without mentioning the elephant in the room, the Muslim vote. In each of these states, the winning caste combination against the BJP included the Muslims. That's the reason the BJP has been saying the Muslims have a veto on who rules India. These parties did little for the Muslims, barring throw some lollipops at them. That is some Hajj subsidy, salaries and allowances for imams. They set up Maulana Azad National Urdu University, which is now producing degree holders from there in Urdu medium, most of whom are unemployable, unfortunately. These parties were smug in thinking and believing that the Muslims would vote for them out of their fear of the BJP. Over time, secular vote became a code for the Muslims. I told you a little bit later that I will explain to you why we are putting secular vote in quotes. Secular vote became a code for the Muslims. It was the electoral equivalent of protection money, that you vote for me, I will protect you from the BJP. Otherwise, BJP will come and do awful things to you. Transition in the BJP from the Vajpayee-Advani era to Modi and Shah took away the secular niceties and Muslim-friendly pretense of the past. The founders of the BJP, that is Advani, Vajpayee, etc., they would happily host iftars, but Modi won't even wear the skull cap for a photo op. That's as apt a metaphor as you can find, because the hypocrisy of the past was gone with the BJP. The Hindu constituency saw this as a clear signal that this BJP was their party first. It also fired the imagination of the party cadre. Now, the new BJP had no hesitation in being rude to Muslims in public discourse, hard selling the allegation of appeasement against the secular parties, appeasement of minorities that is, and victimhood of Hindus. As the political pitch changed, and we are back to our old habit of using a cricketing metaphor again, as the political pitch changed, pitch as in pitch, say from a dry dust bowl to a bouncy green top, the secular parties were still trying the same variants of their spin. Modi's BJP, on the other hand, was thundering down with deadly pace, seam up, Hindu majority cheering them along. The opposition at some point began to understand this. Rahul Gandhi made his temple visits, and his most trusted factotum in his party bared his Janeu, that is sacred thread, and Brahmin Gotra to us. Akhilesh, Lalu, Tejashwi, Mayawati have all been cautious on the endless incarceration of Muslim activists, mostly young Muslim activists in the anti-CAA agitation. But these are defensive, apologetic, and panicky responses. There is nothing forthright about these. They amuse the BJP and its Hindu voters because all they see in this is fear and indecision on the part of their political rivals, that is the so-called secular parties. Indian secularism is in fact choking with the electoral cynicism of its leaders and its beneficiaries, who reduced it to an instrument to build about a 30-35% vote bank with a couple of lower castes and a core of Muslims thrown in. Translated, it means the burden of protecting India's secularism was outsourced to its 14% Muslims. It was unsustainable, it was too good to last, and in 2014, it was over. Now we know that many people don't like it, and it's perfectly right of them to believe so, because this is politics, this is a democracy. Democracy is about ideological differences and ideological battles. But whoever wants to change this, if they want to change this, they must first bring back the Hindus in their fold. Unless you have a critical mass of Hindu voters, you don't have a hope in hell. Indian secularism will not be restored unless you can convince the Hindus that it is good for them and their country. BJP will not be faced by your rants, outrage, charges that the republic is dead, the idea of India is over. This kind of stuff doesn't bother them. We can take the cue from Ambedkar. He had very presciently objected, intervened to reject the demand to add the words secular and socialist to the preamble of our constitution in the Constituent Assembly debate. He said, who are we? The founders' generation, that is, who are we to ordain what social system will a republic follow in the future? That will be determined by people of that time. What he had meant was that today everybody wants India to be socialist, secular, but we don't know 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, 75 years hence, what is it that the people would want? It's a republic, let them decide. We can't ordain it for them forever. Today, the majority Indians have voted to remold India in their own idea. And this is not Nehruvian secularism. Now, unless you have something more convincing to offer to the Hindus, you have zero chance of changing it. It is easier then. If you don't want to do it, we know it's hard work. If you are willing to do it, you might have a chance. If not, it is easier. If you want an easier option, you can just keep tweeting in anger and count the retweets and likes, that might be one way of achieving victory, such as it would be. You can at least win on Twitter, if not in the court of the larger voting public opinion.